Thank you, folks. We're going to have a few questions. So if you want to remain to the end of public comment, I know several commissioners are going to have questions regarding the comments you've made. All right, please go to them.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, good morning. There's a crucial immediate need in our community to better understand what Orange County Transit Authority appears ready to do to San Clemente. An emergency coastal rail presentation OCTA provided last month, which contains this slide of a project roadmap. It's projected to start with railway protection construction in about 5 months in North and South San Clemente, meaning a start this August, now 4 months away. The project consists primarily of boulder dumps to widen their riprap revetments. During the presentation, the OCTA project manager stated, quote, "We need to get ahead of the next storm season. Phase 1 would be initiating agency coordination and regulatory permitting. And we've already begun that process with the Army Corps of Engineers and the California Coastal Commission." If you could remove the slide, please. I can't make it more clear than this. There's a significant groundswell of support from the San Clemente public and our city council that sand replenishment must precede any revetment enhancements. We all know that once the revetment additions cover up most of the tiny amount of sand we have left, the ocean waves hitting the rocks at high tide will scour off the remaining beach and it will be gone. Please, if you are in fact in discussion with OCTA regarding an emergency request for revetment mitigation, let them know that you would consider an emergency permit for sand mitigation first, not boulders. Truth is, and we all know it, boulders kill beaches. So next up, John Dow regarding mitigation for previous boulder dumps at Cypress Shores, Gary Walsh and Susie Whitelaw on proposed boulder dumps at State Beach, and then Lisa Gant on agency transparency and public participation. Thank you for this opportunity to present our concerns.
Thank you, John Dow.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a slide presentation. Thank you. Slide 2. Hello, commissioners. John Dow, Save Our Beaches, San Clemente, speaking again on OCTA's senseless and continuous assault on San Clemente's beaches. Today, specifically on mitigation for OCTA's 2021 beach destruction in South San Clemente. Slide 3. OCTA's playbook is now obvious. First, do nothing to proactively protect the tracks, then wait for the predictable to happen and call it an emergency. Then use this as a pretext to obtain an emergency permit and engage in actions that would be rejected through any normal review process. Then proceed to destroy coastal resources when superior alternatives exist. And then after the irreparable damage has been done, negotiate with you folks for the least mitigation possible, preferably an in lieu fee paid for with taxpayer dollars. Slide 4. The mitigation imposed for this past damage is now even more significant with OCTA's new $200 million riprap plan to destroy 50% of San Clemente's beaches, in addition to the 30% already gone. Oh, and the $13 million doesn't even come close to addressing the past damage. Slide 5. Last December, we proposed some mitigation objectives. I would add, in-kind is better than in lieu fee. In-kind requires OCTA to take direct responsibility for their damage and will have a greater future deterrent than a fee paid for with taxpayer dollars. They break it, they fix it. Also, a fungible payment can be diverted or misspent. However, if you decide on a payment, please include strings to make sure it's spent in South San Clemente. Lastly, if it's the Corps that issues these emergency permits allowing OCTA's senseless destruction, and you can't prevent these actions and can only impose remedies post-destruction, then only by requiring meaningful mitigation can you enforce a course correction by an out-of-control agency needing restraint. OCTA has shown a total disregard for the objectives of this commission and the interests of Californians, and their beach-destroying actions must be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary Walsh, and then Susie Whitelaw, and then Lisa Gant.
Yes, can we go to the next slide first, please? Thank you. Hi, Gary Walsh, Save Our Beaches, San Clemente. And as you heard, OCTA is once again asking for these emergency permits. I would request that you ensure that it is an emergency and not an urgency. ask you, don't fall for their cant phrases and promises that sand will be implemented as part of their plan, because their plan goes like this. They're going to place riprap down first, and then at some later time, they'll look into placing sand down in front of the riprap. That won't work because the beach will be eliminated, and the possible effective methods of replenishing beaches all require a beach to exist. No beach, no replenishment, and OCTA will shrug their shoulders and say sorry. Now on slide 1 here, this is what South San Clemente looks like after OCTA implemented massive riprap. This is a sea level photo, and I say sea level because you'll note there is no beach. That's because the riprap exacerbates sand erosion, as we all know. And once placed, there is no buffer to keep the ocean from the riprap. Now, this is not a doctored photo or specially timed during king tides. This is just a random shot I took a couple of weeks ago. No consideration given for the tides. Slide 2, please. Slide 2, please. Can we get to the next, or go back?
We're working on it.
There we go. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is what the San Clemente State Park beach looks like currently if you were to turn around from when that last photo was taken. Notice the high tide line and notice where the revetment proposed comes out, 50 feet from the tracks. Actually, the tide goes a little higher, but I didn't try to time it out. So this means that the beach will not exist after they put the riprap in. And it will look like, if you can go back to the other slide again, this is what that beach will look like in quick order. Another accessible beach to join the ranks of the dodo bird on the... Oh, you delayed me a little bit on the photos. Let me just finish up. Any approval of the permit must be strictly mandated that a plan requires sand needs to be put down first. Thank you.
Susie Whitelaw.
OCTA's proposed engineered revetment would cover the entire, I'm sorry, I had a presentation.
We're pulling it up now.
Thank you. OCTA's proposed engineered revetment would cover the entire San Clemente State Beach out to the red line indicated between the magenta and the yellow lines. This represents about 40% of San Clemente's public beaches. Next slide, please. This beach is included in SANDAG's 2027 sand replenishment program under the umbrella with the city of San Clemente. But when it looks like the photo on the left, how do you even begin to set up a dredge operation like you see on the right-hand side, which requires a beach? Sand must come first. Next slide, please. We have a plan which we will be presenting to staff. First, import sand. Oh, I'm sorry. Looking at it from a cross section, how do you replenish a beach when rocks are covering the beach? Sand must come first. Next slide, please. We have a plan which we will be presenting to staff. First, import sand via train and truck to stabilize the front of the revetment, then allow the minimum amount of rock necessary to stabilize the tracks while they consider relocation. Next slide, please. What we are asking from you is to issue emergency permits for sand, not rock. OCTA plans to claim an emergency to bypass environmental impact analysis. CEQA allows for emergency repairs to publicly owned service facilities. To streamline the environmental process, it is recommended that a single corridor wide, the 7 miles of SE, be utilized, according to OCTA. Next slide, please. Meanwhile, they're characterizing the work as a routine maintenance to obtain exemption from the Coastal Commission. The CCC has the discretion to exempt ongoing routine repair and maintenance of railroads. Therefore, it is recommended as a first step that OCTA request an exemption from the executive director for any work in all potential reinforcement areas. Next slide, please. OCTA claims that the Coastal Commission is the major impediment to protecting their tracks with sand instead of rocks. Let's prove them wrong. It's obvious that sand is better than rocks. Please give sand the same permitting concessions that you would for rocks. Let's have 50 feet of sand, not 50 feet of rock. Thank you.
Lisa Gant. And then Mary Jane Schramm, Derek Falconer, Carl Willard.
Hi. I am very disheartened by the Orange County Transit Authority's approach to rail resiliency in San Clemente. OCTA calls it coastal rail resiliency, but there is really no coastal resiliency in OCTA's approach. We have already lost a beautiful beach in Cypress Shore to the dumping of tons of boulders. The most recent proposals on March 11th by OCTA mentions only boulders and seawalls. Sand is not in that plan. I understand that emergency plans have their place. However, the coastline in San Clemente could use some proactive planning. The issuance of emergency permitting seems to be carte blanche to the dumping of huge boulders on our beaches. These are not small revetments. They are monster revetments that are piled high and wide. Over and over again, expertise has been shared with OCTA that sand replenishment is the environmentally responsible solution to railroad and beach resiliency, yet there is no serious effort to include sand replenishment in their proposals. A great deal of what OCTA is proposing is stated with the caveat of emergency permitting, and emergency permitting in this instance is due to lack of oversight. Emergency permitting bypasses environmental scrutiny. OCTA is not being held accountable, and there is no mitigation being offered for our lost beach. We need proactive planning of sand replenishment. Please issue emergency sand permits for our beaches. Thank you.